I know I don't normally review animated films. It's even rarer that I tackle an anime. But I've checked out the new film Scarlet from Mamoru Hosoda, the director of other films like Wolf Children, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, The Boy and the Beast, and Belle. So let's dive in. Scarlet, a sword-wielding princess from a war-torn medieval kingdom, sets to avenge her father's death, but fails, awakening in a mysterious afterlife. There, she meets an idealistic young man from our present day whose compassion challenges her thirst for vengeance. When Scarlet is confronted once more by her father's killer, she must decide, cling to hatred or discover a life beyond revenge. This is a reimagining of Shakespeare's Hamlet, or maybe it's better described as a combo of The Famous Dane and a time-bending adventure. We follow Scarlet, the princess who's seeking revenge on her uncle for killing her father, the king. I mean, just think of Scarlet as the feminine name equivalent of Hamlet. You see the connection there? Well, anyway, there is a bunch of other characters that either borrow their name from the bard's work or mirror images of their namesakes. We have Claudius, Cornelius, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, who are both dead, Polonius, Laertes, among others. And where this differs greatly from the classic play is Scarlet finds herself in the otherworld. It's not heaven or hell, and I really wouldn't classify it as purgatory. It's just this wasteland that's in between time and space, filled with the dead, some of whom are just chilling during the time, and others who like to battle for true death. Because if you get mortally wounded in the otherworld, you become powder like Thanos had snapped his fingers, and boom, you're no more. Now, the story is a little under 2 hours, and it is a wonderfully beautiful film to watch. The characters, they appear to be hand-drawn with this painted style that creates texture and depth while still maintaining a certain simplicity. The backgrounds, they're varied depending on the scenes. Sometimes they're static with very basic detail. Other times they look kind of computer-generated with tons of intricate details and an aspect that feels more mechanical than organic. Now, a few times the background crowds, they're also appearing to be CGI. Wasn't really a fan of that because it gave the presentation just of something from the late 90s in terms of graphics, which then was a disappointing contrast to the beauty of the characters that we see in the forefront of the images. Now, while the story mainly has this straightforward progression, there were a few times that I was having some difficulty following the timeline. Because people would appear in the otherworld in front of Scarlet, I assumed that they had died. But because we don't know how much time has passed, and then we're not shown deaths of other characters, I couldn't tell with certainty how or why some of these people appeared. Now, to complement the change of Hamlet to Scarlet, we also have Hejiri rather than Ophelia. Now, Hejiri is from what would be considered our present, bringing this future perspective to the story centered around violence and revenge. Now, the dynamic he brings in is in beautiful conflict with Scarlet's mission, creating some opportunities for growth, maybe even a little bit of romance. Now, as someone who doesn't typically watch anime, I was sucked into this. Not only is it just visually awesome, but the voice work and then the inclusion of poignant songs, they help to create this impactful, even relevant story arc. Even if you're not into messaging and social critique, this isn't forcing it down our throats in a ham-fisted way. The points are clear, but they're not preachy. What this ends up offering is a more subtle and effective presentation of the commentary rather than something intrusive. The adventure portion of this I thought was engaging and fun. As Scarlet and Hejiri work their way across the otherworld, they encounter all sorts of people. Some are friendly and kind. Others, they're very antagonistic, even violent. Thanks to the fluidity of time and space within this otherworld, the story is allowed to showcase a variety of creativity involving visuals, songs, and dances. The music is infectious, and it envelops different eras and styles. While the scenes were more similar to kind of a dance number seemingly randomly included like in a Bollywood production, these also didn't drag down the pace, instead added to the depth of the messages and then the connection with the characters. And the action sequences, they're also exciting, bringing a lot of momentum and fluidity, almost making me forget at times that this was animated. The camera moves along with the characters. So just like with live action, the frame is also in motion to complement what the actor is doing rather than just have the character pass through this static frame. Now, when Scarlet has battles, she's agile and skillful. She's not perfect, invincible, even overpowered, but the sequences are crafted in a way to captivate and then create some tension. Now, something that I found curious is that towards the end of the story, there seems to be a highly religious overtone, at least with one character's arc. It was channeling all sorts of Christianese type sentiments, but it doesn't necessarily resolve with that same mindset. Now, for me, as an ex-evangelical, it was a tiny bit triggering, But I also know and can recognize that I may be in the minority here. So it was more kind of a curiosity thing on my part rather than something that detracted from the film's impact. So overall, while I wasn't a fan of the CGI portions of the animation and the timeline occasionally created some following difficulty, I was enthralled by the decision to combine the classic revenge story of Hamlet with a more modern-day focus on eliminating battles and rage for future generations, even as the story showcases brutal battles and fierce clashes. The hand-drawn animation is stunning, creating depth through texture and shadows. The messaging is also poignant and relevant, enhanced through songs and dialogue that subtly but clearly deliver its point. You don't have to be an anime fan to enjoy this. The story stands on its own and is simply just brought to beautiful life through the creativity of the animation. There's no sex, nudity, or profanity, but there is some violence. I give Scarlet 4 out of 5 couches. So what are you binging right now? Anything good that you can recommend to me? Love to hear about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.